Welcome to Whiskey, Watches, and Wheels. So a little bit different voice tonight because we are missing a few folks. So Matt is out tonight and Kevin is out tonight. We do have Casey on board here and we do have a guest, special guest, but I just wanted to say that we are the #1 podcast in Hope, Arkansas. Anybody know why?
No. Wonder why.
I'll give you a heads up. It is the birthplace of Klipsch.
So we were going for something.
So I'm James.
I did enjoy, James, your intro voice. It was very Matt-like.
You like that?
Yeah.
Welcome. Well, we do have a special guest. So filling in, we've got Kris. Kris has joined us. Kris, how about you introduce yourself?
I'm Kris Brandt. I come across this guy here doing something we both love is speakers. You can see a speaker right behind me. And we kind of became friends through Facebook Marketplace. Those speakers actually right here are James' old speakers.
Kerwin's, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we met up on Facebook Marketplace, right? I believe it was, or one of the Facebook groups, but we wound up trading speakers and we went our own ways. And once in a while we'd chat, but one day I went to Discount Tire
to
get some new tires and Kris
was
there.
Classic meeting spot.
Yes. Right. And then we reconnected and then we got together and we just chatted up a bit more, exchanged some more speakers. I'm borrowing a set of Klipsch Heresies right now, which I think they were on last week's episode, sitting on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been enjoying those. And then we just do what we do. It's not dissimilar to what we have our chat. Well, Kris and I kind of have our own chat going on what do you think of these speakers? What do you think of this receiver? And mostly, I'd say 99.5% of the conversation has to do with vintage speakers, vintage receivers, vintage turntables. And
James
Kris
kind of stuck in that realm. I don't know if anybody else has seen his decor in his home. It's very MCM.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It's my style. Unfortunately, my wife doesn't agree with my style. And
yeah, 100%. I love that style as well. There's so much about the 50s, 60s, 70s that I wish we could still have. I wasn't around during that time, but the cars, the architecture, the furniture, all that stuff is definitely my jam. And fortunately for me, my wife does like it for the most part.
Nice.
And we do our own little spin on it, kind of industrialized, kind of modernized it a little more because I'm very cold. My wife is, she wants some warmth and she actually wants it figuratively and literally. So we have to add blankets and some pillows and some comfort items for her. But yeah, I certainly dig that vintage stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what's interesting, you were talking about that. You said, Casey, you said that you weren't around for that time, but here's the thing is everything that was around is still around.
That's true.
Right. So here we are, we're driving these old Porsches, right? We're all running, my stereo's 50 years old, 50. It hasn't been recapped. Serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't built to be tossed. It was built to stick around and it's sticking around. And these, if you recap them, give them a little bit of love, they'll go for another 50 years and they look amazing.
And the ultimate for the DIYer, because you get to have something that's vintage and classic, got a unique sound and style that you get to DIY repair and have fun with in a different way. So it's like a hobby on top of a hobby on top of a hobby. It just keeps growing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, we all have different ears. So what appeals to me may not appeal to you, Casey, or to Kris, but, there's a sound signature we're looking for, right? So it's a constant search. And, I don't want to say we're audiophiles, but there's a constant search to upgrade to get to that little nth of sound that you've been looking for. So It's almost like instead of rolling tubes, we're rolling speakers, rolling.
Yeah, and
You know.
the audio culture has a lot of those trigger names and trigger words, just like we do in the car world. Nobody wants to be considered, I don't know, snooty. In the car world, we drive Porsches, but we're all, at least in our group, very approachable, normal people. Like, we'll talk to you at the gas station, and I'll admire your Lotus, or even some of the big block stuff. It's not my cup of tea, but if you're a car person, I'm probably going to be able to at least have some sort of conversation with you. And I feel like the audio culture is very much like, oh, if you're an audiophile, you're way put in like this box. If you're a DIY person, you're put in this box. If you're a tube person or a vinyl person or whatever, there's a lot of boxes. But the interesting thing is they really all commingle. And at least for me, I love the vintage stuff. I don't have a tube amp yet. I want a tube amp, although I want to build it myself. So there's a mix of a lot of stuff. But if you've got a good setup, if you got a good setup, you end up going DIY, some vintage, some high end, some all this stuff to really meld it all together. And it's kind of silly that I think the culture in general seems to be dying. We got a lot of these little Bluetooth. I just dropped it, but Bluetooth speakers that anybody under the age of 30 just thinks sound phenomenal, and that's all they want, right? And they're garbage. They're hot garbage. But in the certain scenario, they're fantastic. I use this one out on my boat because I haven't done the stereo out on my boat yet, but like it's fantastic out on the boat. But in general, the sound that comes out is awful. But
we're just used to it.
We're used
Don't
to
forget,
it,
half of us were raised on a iPod, right?
That's exactly right.
And that's one of the worst iterations of listening to your music that you can get because of the quality. You're compressing and taking away from the sound to get it onto this small little pocket-sized device. So there's a lot to that. Where even on the equipment side, not just the equipment, but the content side, you got people that are vinyl guys. Like, I love vinyl, but it's not as easy to enjoy sometimes. When you want to enjoy vinyl, it's a planned experience.
It's a process.
Because it's like when we were kids, we eat cereal. You got a box of cereal in front of you, and you're looking at the cartoons on the back.
That's exactly right. You memorize. I memorized Captain Crunch nutritional facts. I can tell you those.
Well, I was looking at the Chutes and Ladders stuff on the back and the puzzles. But vinyl, you get something like this. This is Jack White's Lazaretto album.
I love that album. I have that.
So if you notice that he pulled out all the stops on the vinyl, on all the tricks you can do. So one side plays inside out.
Yep.
The other side's outside in. One side's matte. One side's not.
Well, it kind of helps when you own the printing press, right? Oh, yeah. The printing plant for the vinyl. So
I will say, when I first played the side that goes inside out, I can't remember if it's the A side or B side. It confused the fuck out of me, and I thought something was wrong.
Yeah.
Wait, explain that. Explain, what do you mean?
You start it at the core, and it runs to the outside.
Yeah, it runs back to that.
And so that's amazing.
I started it like a normal record, like on the outside, and it just gives you, the skip, the end of the record, that like thump, thump,
yes,
thump.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is going on? I must have got a bad record. So I move it in a little bit, and it's the end of a song, and I'm like, the fuck is going on? Like, I really thought that I had something that was screwed up. But then you're like, okay, well, that's awesome. Start it from the other side. It works great.
That's fantastic.
Well, you can tell everybody that tonight it's not so much the normal chat. We are going to be talking a lot about audio. We're going to be talking about DIY. We're going to be talking about speakers. We're going to be talking about some of the equipment we have. And we're also going to touch on bourbon, because if you're watching on YouTube, you can see behind Kris, he's got a shit ton of bourbon behind him. Casey has a closet full of bourbon. I've got a wall of bourbon, and we'll check back on that. But Kris, what do you do
What do I
And
do?
and you're 9 to 5, or you're as a business owner, it's not a 9 to 5, it's a 24-hour gig.
Pretty much 24 hours. So I do my hobby. It's, audio video, custom home theaters. I've been pretty much doing audio video my entire life, be it car audio, home audio, commercial audio, sound reinforcement. I have a lot of family members that are in bands. One of my brother-in-laws is a EDM DJ
Oh,
producer.
that's fucking
He
cool.
he produces for Nicky Yor. He's actually his bass player while he's on tour. So he's got it was a teeny bopper song from a year or two ago that played all summer.
That's cool.
Um, but yeah, I've been in the industry most of my life. Started out pretty young. Ride my bicycle around town. That's what started me back into this vintage audio hobby. Well, this is where it started. Was I was in high school, junior high, riding my bicycle around my hometown in Illinois. And every day at the end of the day, we would end up at the local stereo shop, LaSalle Electronics, which was one of my best friend's dad owned the company. And that was one of my first jobs out of high school. And actually, even before that, I was the speaker boy in the basement. So any speakers that came in, I repaired them. I rebuilt crossovers, refoamed them, reconed them, all that stuff when I was 15, 16 years old. And then got into car audio heavy.
But let me ask you a question before you get to the 16, 17, 18-year-old where you're probably doing big bass stuff.
Oh, yeah.
What was the initial draw into the audio realm?
It really was
your dad into it, or did you see like a big movie, or what brought you in?
My whole family was into music. So my uncle's he just got ripped off, but he had a Marantz 2275 that ran two Serwin Vega VS 120, or sorry, four of them, two sets of them. So he was always jamming. My uncle Mark always had car stereos and the stereo at the house. All my uncles had stereos. My parents had some of the biggest, baddest stereos because they had a band, and the band practiced in the basement or in the garage, whatever house. We had a recording studio in the basement of one of our houses. So I've been inundated with music my whole life, and it was just kind of a natural progression as I got older. In high school, my best friend and I would have sleepovers and design speakers. We had a notebook full of speakers. We sit there and draw because that's been Bose Acoustamass was really cool. So we got these little cubes, and they did the whole sock over the top of it and flip them off. I'm like, oh no, it's these little itty bitty speakers. So we're like, oh, we can make those, and we get our car audio magazines out and find a bunch of raw drivers and say, look, we can buy these drivers and put these together. And
where were you shopping from?
Actually, it was Car Stereo Review. It was the yearly price guide. So you go through the price guide, and I would just find a brand, and these are cheap enough that we could afford those, and we can make a speaker and make like a Bose Acoustamass.
I don't know how old you are, but I'm 40. But I was a Matasound guy.
Okay, Matt.
So I was doing the same thing out of Matasound and out of those same magazines. But yeah,
I sold a lot of those speakers back in the day. A lot of their gear. We had one guy here in Rock Hill that had 4 of the 18s in the back seat of his Avalanche, and it was insane. So yeah, I used to do all the big stereos like that. And
so how did you actually get in? How did you actually turn it from a hobby into a business?
To a business actually happened back in 2007. I've been working for a local company here, and we didn't go do installs for anybody that wanted just a TV hung or wanted to buy a set of speakers and install just that one set of speakers. We did full systems, no matter what. It was a turnkey system, so we wouldn't roll a truck without that. So I was like, well, if it's okay with the bosses, I'll start doing these installs on nights and weekends, and make a little bit extra cash, and these customers get a good experience.
The smaller scale stuff.
Oh yeah. And that's when it started doing that nights and weekends. And alongside of me starting my business, I worked for another company with manufacturers. We manufactured audio video equipment. and
Yes.
automation stuff. The whole ball of wax is one of the number one companies in the world for
I don't mean
automation.
to interrupt again, but
That's okay.
it's funny that you talk about the small scale installations. Because when did like the plasma start to really come out? 04, 5, 6, somewhere in there where they started coming
01
to
was the first gen, but like mass when we were knocking them out, we did 3 surround systems a day per truck here in Charlotte, and it was you're looking at Pioneer Elite. Actually, I was at a
Yes.
customer's house today that has one of my old TVs.
Yes.
Pioneer Elite plasma,
So
and
kind of like the
Would
normal
they cost
person.
like $4,000 at that point?
yeah,
Yes.
43-inch was $5,500.
There you
Yeah.
go. And it was amazing how fucking difficult it was to hang a TV, right? Like now it's a $40 bracket off of Amazon, right? Or eBay, whatever you choose.
Or just run over to Walmart and you're back
Yeah.
in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's crazy,
And
the
it's
conversation I
amazing
just
how
had today.
Easy. It's so easy now. But back then it was a like true orchestration of events to be able to hang a TV, run what at the time, what component, your 3 wires back there, and then the audio, which was never like easily done. Like it was a huge pain in the dick to get that right.
Mm-hmm.
And then
that's what I did, 3 a day.
there you go. It was such a pain in the butt to do that stuff back then.
Yeah, well, it wasn't like
Well, for normal people, it was.
Yeah,
sure,
yeah. That's what I did for a living, and
There
that's
you
what
go.
I was known for in this area, and I still am. Like I can get wires to places where nobody else can, and like my whole house is all retrofit. This house was.
I
on
don't want to know
slab.
anything more about that.
It's been in some tight spots, but yeah, it's changed a lot. That's for sure. And literally today, one of my customers, longtime customer, has one of those 2005 vintage, 2004 really, Pioneer Elite 43-inch. It's a PDP 801 or 810 plasma on a huge Chief dual arm mount tucked over in the corner. And man,
Still going?
he's like, man, that thing's so heavy. What do you do with something like this? I'm like, you can chuck it as far as you can.
Like Office Space.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
exactly
it's
right.
starting to deteriorate. I mean, the picture still looks good to him, but it's starting to gray. It's starting to go bad.
So is this kind of the home audio, commercial audio, and visual, or all audio? It's or a mix? What
For
is
me?
it? Yeah.
Oh, it's everything. I do anything technology. So home automation. So like my home automation system, it touches everything that you want it to. My garage doors, my thermostats, all the smart home stuff. It's not a new thing anymore. So I mean, I talk it like it's brand new stuff, but
Still cool.
that's my bread and butter is
Yeah.
automating someone's house and making their life easy, and the house works for them.
The thing is that it may feel old to you, but there's so many people that don't have any of that stuff.
Yeah, it's true.
James, what? Because I don't think you and I have talked about this, but in a 1 minute version, what was your path into this?
So I'd always been into stereos. I still have my original stereo from 1980. Actually, my daughter has it. The thing still goes, still works flawlessly. And I had always pined for this stuff. So, we had the Sears and the JCPenney Christmas catalog, and you dog ear everything. Well, I used to do the same thing with the Radio Shack catalog, right? Yeah. Oh man, I want these big ass speakers. Oh, I want this. And I would just pine for it. And then, it's like at some point, I worked at a record store. I did the whole vinyl thing. I had a lot of vinyl. And then I was part of the whole switch over to CDs. So I remember clearing out whole sections of vinyl to bring in these CDs. And people were like, what the hell? Remember when they first came out, they were in cardboard boxes, tall cardboard boxes.
Yes.
Right. So we would replace them. And then I started buying them before I even had a CD player. And one of my girlfriends.
First CD?
I believe it was David Bowie.
Nice.
Diamond Dogs.
Cocktail soundtrack.
Yes.
Oh,
was
that's
it?
classic.
Cocktail soundtrack.
Oh,
And I was like 10, I think. So
So I can tell
that's
you,
awesome.
I'm
I can tell you
46.
I bought two at one time, or my brother and I split them. It was the Rembrandts, which played the Friends soundtrack. They
Yeah.
had that
Yep.
Friends song. And the other one was Hootie and the Blowfish.
Nice.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And those were
That's
purchased
cool.
in early 1994.
Nice. I went all in on the CD thing, and then from there I went into the, I took all my CDs, I ripped them to hard drives. I listened on headphones. It just had to be on headphones. I couldn't crank it up at the house.
Interesting.
And then my daughter started, she was at the age where everything was digital. You couldn't own anything. You couldn't touch anything. And then she got into the vinyl, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm with you. Let's do this. And just the joy that we would have to go out and buy vinyl together, or more along the lines of, Dad, I want this, and Dad buys it. Right. Or, back then when she first got into it, you could still get great albums for $5, like just killer albums. And
because she was always into classic stuff.
Yeah. And, she's a big Deadhead like her dad. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I mean, that was a whole process, as far as when she was a kid, like, oh my God, what is this? This is terrible. They can't sing. And then one day it would be like, yeah, this Dead stuff is killer. Right. So she does all that. And then, I would turn her on to things that were, kind of the music family tree. So like, oh, here's some Van Morrison. You need to check out some Van Morrison. Right. And things like that. And now she's discovering her own. So she got really into Zappa. And I was like, that's fantastic. More power to you, and just enjoying it with her. So from there, it was like, I'm on my own here. I can now listen to these albums or CDs at whatever volume I want. So that's what I did. And I started, it's like when you were a kid, Marantz, we talk about Porsche tax, right? Well, the old Marantz, there's a Marantz tax even to this day.
There is.
So if you want to buy a Marantz, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. So you can buy a Pioneer, it's going to cost you X. You're going to buy a Marantz equal to that at 1.5 to 2 times X. Yeah. So
mid 90s, I was getting for $45.
Yeah. Well,
pawn shop.
So yeah, no kidding. And you can still find those, and they show up every single day at a thrift store or online or at an estate sale. I still see it constantly. I picked it up for $50, right? And then you recap it and you turn around and you sell it for $1,500. So that's kind of the hobby as it is today. And that's how I met Kris. I had these speakers and they were cool, but you know what? There's always something else. Let's find out what these were. And we talked and he said, you should try these. So we switched speakers straight up. Loved them. Sound great. Right. So I got a set of Polk, right, from you.
Monitor 10s,
Polk 10s.
Yep.
And then you took those Serwin Vegas. Fantastic. You got what you wanted. You got your sound signature. I got my sound signature. We're all happy. We stay in touch. And then, I'm kind of buying a lot of shit. I have 5 turntables and it's like, well, they need service. How do I do this? Maybe Kris knows. Kris, how do I do this? I got to rewire this. How do you do it? And that's where we're at. So what about you, Casey? You didn't tell us.
Yeah. So my journey was probably similar in the grand scheme of thing. I was, as a little kid, I would sit in like my bedroom and have alarm clocks, the boombox, whatever audio equipment that I could have. And I would put them all around me and tune them to the same radio station.
Yeah.
And I was like, creating
awesome.
like this, like
surround sound
stage of like, music. And so I always was like into it. I was in the band as a kid. Like, so I've always loved music, but was, not that great at playing music. And then when my mom remarried, and the financial aspect changed, my stepfather had some money, and so he had a stereo. And so when we watch movies, we would, at that time, he had like a 5.1 system. And this would have been early 90s. And it was like, wow, this is freaking awesome. And we're home. The TV sucked because it was like a, 32 inch, 400-pound like behemoth.
That was a big TV, except for
it was a big
gosh.
TV back then.
outside of rear projection.
But they killed.
Exactly.
They were killer.
But
They were
but
killer.
it would look great. But it was a sound that got you, right? And so when I turned, this would have been, he had a good system that had like a, I can't think of the full name, but it was like M and K or
M&K.
Okay. That's the system he had. They had like three mid woofers in the front, like speakers. And then the surrounds were just like some Boston acoustic, like 8-inch speakers.
Yeah.
And he had the tape deck. There you go. The tape deck and the 5-disc CD player. And so I loved that stuff. Like I always loved tech. And this to me was just an extension of technology stuff, computer stuff, just different, right? So when they would be out of the house, I'm the one like putting my CD in there and like cranking it up and seeing what we could do. And then when I got in, I could have been probably 12, 13 years old. My parents bought a rear projection TV, like you said, Kris, and it was a 52-inch, huge box, right?
Massive.
Like it was on like an 18-inch stand, essentially, that had the speakers, but then
With
like
the
it was a massive
RGB
box.
bulbs, right?
Yes.
The RGB bulbs, yeah.
And it was phenomenal. That was my introduction to the visual side, the TV side, right? We had I'm from Kentucky, and we had a place called oh shit.
They just got TVs there, by the way, Kris.
Yeah. I can't remember the name. Barney Miller.
Yeah.
He that's where that was like the audio visual like place in Lexington. They had the TV. We bought this big, I think it was 64, maybe 54 something. It was massive.
Yeah, they had 52s, 55s.
And we had it in the basement, which was the kids area. And so like we'd watch movies and it would just be out of the TV speakers. My dad's stereo was up on the main TV upstairs, in the living room, whatever. And I'm like, well, this sucks. Like, this is where I hang out. This is where all the kids hang out. And the stereo is awful. So I took it upon myself. And I'm literally 12 or 13 years old. And I went and bought my first stereo, which was some Boston acoustic towers.
Cool.
And
Nice.
an NAD stereo receiver.
Wow.
And hooked it up to the TV and just freaking fell in love. That's when it was. We could watch it, and I'll tell you the movie, Saving Private Ryan.
Yep.
It came out on 2 VHS tapes.
Great audio in that.
A lot of rain.
I still watch it, and I still get goosebumps in the opening scene, Normandy Beach scene. But that was the moment that I fell in love with the audio stuff. And I soon after added a subwoofer and, figured out how to do all that. My parents were blown away, right? Because the upstairs stereo now was subpar compared to what we could watch in the basement in the kids' room. Yeah. And it was awesome. I'd have like dance parties after football games. My parents, God bless them, would allow us to have all the football team over to the house, which would turn into a big house party. We'd order pizza or sub sandwiches or Hooters, and it would just be phenomenal. And we just cranked the stereo up. And I had one of those like 36 disc like carousel CD players.
Oh,
like
killer.
They weren't good, but like
they lock up
you
all
wanted
the time.
to have all your CDs in there, right? So you could just dial up whatever you wanted. It took like 4 minutes for the next CD to come up, but everyone loved it, and it would just be a blast. And that's what I'm like, music and this stuff, like the music that you play, the songs that you play, you associate with a time in your life.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's really
that's the beauty of it.
That's really what it became for me. And I never from that point, really never let go of that. And so I had, a period of time where, of course, I went to college, where I really got into the DIY side because in my college dorm, I couldn't take these big towers.
Because
So
he had 7 years to figure it out in college.
That's right. But I couldn't take these big towers, so I had to build bookshelf size stuff. How do you get like a good is a really relative term, receiver into a college dorm without it like getting stolen or, having the RA come yell at you. And then at the same time, I'm starting to get into cars. So I have a Miata. I put, Boston, a two-way system, and then installed some 8-inch subs in the rear deck. And then it just kind of continued to evolve. But those that was kind of my intro, is that it was my dad having a stereo and then falling in love with the like,
killer.
We're watching it, but man, I can feel it.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. The audio is always the biggest part of the experience.
It is 100%.
Video is a huge part of the experience, but the audio is the bigger part. And I used to play in my big surround system. I had kind of a little 19-inch TV.
Yeah,
all this audio.
Well,
so
hey,
little
19 was massive at that point.
Well, in the early 2000s, it wasn't really that massive. That was a pretty small TV for everybody in the neighborhood.
What about you, Kris? What was your first setup then?
My first setup was a Scott amplifier, a vintage like 1960s, late 60s Scott amplifier with a set of it was a PA system. So
nice.
Two 18-inch inverted reverse horn loaded subwoofers, Electro Voice horns, and 12 piezo tweeters on each side. It was big stuff.
They were inverted from the factory.
Yeah, they're a PA system, so it was sound reinforcement. They were designed to hurt people on the other side at the gym.
Yes, yes.
Those were my bedroom. I grew up in the Midwest in Illinois, where we had a 6,800 square foot Victorian. My bedroom was the size of most people's houses here in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I had.
So you got some thump out of it too.
Well, I was a DJ when I was in high school too, so that was my first DJ system. My first nice system, like for listening to music like a normal person instead of trying to rattle your teeth out of your head, was a set of Boston Acoustic HD8s. I'm looking for another set of those.
Nice.
There is a set up there by Ucasia. It pops up every once in a while.
Well, let me know. I'll go check them out.
Maybe. I want another set of them. Then I had a Serwin Vega passive subwoofer. A little 10-inch. The ones when they started doing the purple logos and when they started the downturn of the quality and performance.
Yeah.
And I had a Technics receiver. So that was my first nice little system. But I had DJ equipment. I had car stereo stuff before I even had a car. Big Boston fan.
Yeah, I was a huge, still am. I wish it was better anymore. I don't think they
don't.
Well, at least in my world,
my work
not really out there.
I have a set of Boston Pro 6.4s. I had two set, and I sold a set, and I unfortunately wish he would have kept them and gave them back to me. But those, I just installed them in my work van a couple months ago with one of my JL subs. I got stereo equipment galore.
Stuff was good. Yeah. The stuff was good.
I got a couple sets of them still.
In my 280Z, I had a big old set of Jensen's in the back.
6x9s?
Right. And then I had it. Yes. And then I had an equalizer. Yes. Then I had an equalizer in the glove compartment. Yeah, it was killer. So when I did all this, back in the 80s, you could go to a stereo store and you could negotiate. So not like today where you walk into Best Buy and the price is the price. You would go in there and go, I want this, this, and this. And they'd say, okay, it's X. And you're like, I'll give you this.
Was this because it was considered to be like a luxury high-end good? Like a car,
I believe because there weren't chains. There weren't national chains. There were chains, yes, but they were local, maybe tri-state area type of thing. Like maybe in 3 states, maybe in a single state where they had maybe 3 other stores, not 300 or 3,000.
It wasn't very competitive for sure. It was
right. So they wanted you to leave with something in your pocket, right? You needed to have a bag when you left there. Yeah. So they would negotiate, and you're like, I want this and this, and I'm thinking it's worth this. And they'll be like, how about this? Okay, let's do it. Yeah. It was great. It was like buying a car. Yeah. It was just everything that was negotiable at some point. Now that, those days are over.
Now it's the internet and
absolutely.
It's probably, some of it has to be because a lot of the information was
hidden. Wasn't available.
Was hidden. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You didn't have, I think about that today as far as, really with anything. How did you find, the only way you could find out about anything was through a catalog or personal experience.
Yeah.
Or Sound and Vision magazine, or that's more my age. But like, you had to
me too.
You had to like subscribe and like read that stuff and decipher and like, oh, this guy liked this brand, so he's probably not going to like this brand. You had to like really follow writers and like understand what their likes were. You're right.
Stayed in front of the magazine rack for hours. I only want one magazine because they were expensive.
That's right.
I'm
they
sitting
were
there
$10 a pop,
reading it as I'm sitting there waiting for mom to finish shopping.
I've got one more. So I've got one more story. I think it'll lead into another discussion here. But so my neighbors back in the day, right? They were big DIY. They would build their own TV, right? We started a band and we built our own stereo cabinets. Built our own amps, right? Yeah. And this neighbor, his name was Wayne, right? He was good friends with my dad, right? And we would go over to his house and they had built-in stereo stuff, right? And he was a huge Pink Floyd fan and we would listen to Pink Floyd, but we couldn't touch anything. Do not touch this stuff, right? But he built all of it. He built every piece of that stereo, which is amazing. And just the ability to sit there and build all that stuff is crazy to me. And the thought of actually building my own speakers or even building a receiver is crazy. But I know that Casey, this is what you've done. So tell me about that.
I've always wanted and lusted after those super high-end speakers that we've all seen, say the Wilsons and I can't think of the name, but the ones that look like a snake.
Same drivers.
See, look at you.
In those triads.
There you go. See? The ones that look like
the ones that curve out.
Yep.
Yes.
You're talking about the ones that curve out and point right at
$25,000 a set.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I would go to Bill Hardy, the local stereo guy, and sit and listen. And he was like, Casey, I'll sit and teach you. And he was super nice. And so I listened to whatever he had. They were like Lynn and Boston's and I can't think of the other ones. I don't remember the others, but I would sit and lust after these things. And, I'm a high school, early college kid, and there's no way I could afford some $5,600 Lynn speakers. And so I started to figure out, as I did in all aspects of my life, figure out how can I achieve, this level with a budget, champagne level, but beer budget, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started learning. I bought the books, the how to build.
Is this pre-YouTube?
Yes, this is pre-YouTube. This is when I'm in high school. Bought books about how to design a crossover, what goes into building a speaker, how do you calculate how big the box needs to be. That's very basic, right? Any subwoofer guy can do that. But why do you choose a 2500 hertz crossover versus a 3000 hertz crossover? All these little questions. And I was not smart enough at that time to use the software, which was very rudimentary, but to design my own crossover. And I could not solder to save my life at that time either. So I had to buy like the Parts Express off the shelf 25 hertz 2500 hertz crossover. And so I said, all right, my crossover is going to be 2500 hertz. So then what speakers do I need to get? What tweeter and what woofer do I need to get that's going to cross over a half octave, both before this, and like, how's it going to sound? And, there weren't the forums that we have now. You didn't have AVS, Audio Karma, all this stuff that you couldn't really do this stuff. So anyhow, I started just buying stuff from Matasound on my super tight budget, and I ended up building a set of speakers that had a dome tweeter that was surface mounted and an 8-inch woofer surface mounted, because I didn't know how to use a router at that time. My dad was a fantastic woodworker, but he was like, you do this. This is your project. I will make sure that you're safe with the tools, but you need to learn how to do it. And that's why I love him. He would always give me the tools, but never tell me exactly how to do things. I had to solve it myself.
But would he guide you at least, or
he would make sure I didn't cut my finger off.
Okay,
that's good guidance. That's pretty good.
That's what I wanted. I wanted to figure it out myself. And so I ended up building these speakers. This would have been, by the time I got, this would have been like freshman in college or right before college. And I took them to Bill Hardy's stereo shop. Okay. And I set them in front of him. We hooked it up to like Name or, the NAD receiver of the day. And he played some of my music, which at the time I used a lot of Dave Matthews, Under the Table and Dreaming.
Wham.
Yep.
I did not use Wham. But Under the Table of Dreaming was a fantastically, at least in my opinion, recorded CD. It sounds really, really good. And so he would play it, and he sat and listened, and then he played some of his stuff. And I was like, all right, like, what do you think these would be worth? And he's like, I think that I would feel comfortable charging $750 for these speakers. And I said, holy shit, I have $150 into this. I was sold on DIY right there.
Oh, yeah.
That I could take knowledge from other people by reading these books, by experimenting just a little bit, and I could create something that had whatever X value of the actual products I put in, just like the car stuff. Just like the Miata I was driving and turbocharging, I could have a car that cost me $5,000 that I could outrun a 996 turbo. Right, from at least 0 to 60, 0 to the next stop sign. And so that got me into DIY. That was it. And from then on, I've been building my own stuff.
So are you checking out YouTube at this point? Because there's so much content as far as building your own speakers, and when you're talking $750 speakers, now you're talking $5,000 and $10,000 speaker DIY competition.
So I am right now completely satisfied with the space that I have.
Wow.
And the speakers that I have. My room is weird. It's cathedral ceiling, completely open. It eats bass, like it's terrible. But the speakers that I have are large. They can fill the room. The bass is really hard. I've got to pump a lot of power. Do you have a picture
or anything like that?
Yep. Thank you. If I can get my mouse over here. But they are from DIY Sound Group. It's a modified build from DIY Sound Group. 1299s is they're called. But they're two 12-inch woofers, two 6-inch, I think 6-inch mids, and then a big horn. This is the 1099 in the middle. You can see one 18-inch sub to the right. There's another one over here to the left.
What's driving that?
It is what is the name? EPS or Euro Power was the old name. I can't think of the name today, but it's they're both like, what it actually ends up putting out is like 1100 watts a channel.
Wow, that's killer.
which is about half of what those are Dayton UM 1822s. So that's about half of the wattage that they can put out in a 4 cubic foot sub.
Nice. That looked cool.
But that right now, that's what that room needs. You know, I haven't finished them, unfortunately, because I'm really bad at actually finishing the whole thing. But you know, that it makes movies a lot of fun. And
Nice.
they can play loud enough. I have an NAD 778, which is it's about on the as far as the like amount of wattage that my room can handle, at least from the fronts. Like this is, I'll run it at about -5 during a good movie like Dune or Saving Private Ryan or something like that.
Does that one have?
But it's got
Dirac.
Yes,
calibration?
that's
Good.
what I was going to say. It's got Dirac, and I really like that software.
Yeah, it's good.
But that's
I've been
the
able-
room correction, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, and it has helped my room immensely.
Nice.
I'm typically or historically a stereo guy that wants no correction.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes you
going
have
to
to.
horns, to horns, I needed a correction because I much rather prefer a dome silk tweeter. And like I said, this room eats bass, and it really needed some help on the low end. Hence, I added a second sub to help out. But
Cool.
Chris, it's a lot.
Chris, what is your go-to right now? What's your setup? What are you running?
Well, for my
or what's your main as opposed to the 6 other sets that are sitting around?
I was gonna say so my go-to system is my I call it my listening room, which is technically a dining room in my house. Because right next to it is the breakfast nook, which is, why would you have 2 tables side by side? So it was a playroom for my son for years. Had a TV in it. My living room, my listening room are side by side. So there's a 75 on one wall and a 65 on the other wall, one room apart. But that's my go-to is my listening room. My wife is now migrated into there. That's her space too. I think it's
in a positive way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
okay,
I got a good story for that. But my go-to is my Fortes. I have a set of Forte 1 Klipsch Fortes. I have 2 sets.
I need to hear them.
I'll bring you a set. I'll swap you out for the Heresies. That's my go-to is a set of Klipsch Forte 1s. Run those off a Parasound amp. My preamp is a Pioneer.
Those Forte 1s, what is the build years of the Forte 1s?
They started the Forte 1s in, I think, 86 or 87. Okay. Cool. So I have a set of 87s and a set of 89s. Nice. The ones that I'm listening to downstairs, I want to say are the 8. Actually, I think I've got the serial number somewhere around here. The tags were in a bag when I bought them from the guy. But that's my go-to set of speakers. No sub needed. They played to 32 hertz really well. Nice. I used to have a sub. I had the amplifier's conking out in it, so I just pulled it out of the system. But I have a Yamaha C80. It's a 1800 watt.
What size? Can you tell us the size of the room?
It's a 13 by 10.
Okay.
So very small. It's not the best listening room. My master bedroom is above my garage, so it's a 20 by 20, and that's where I listen. Like the Fortes that I have in there.
That's where the music magic happens.
That's right. So those are my go-to systems. The family room's got a 5.1. I actually have 3 5.4 surround receivers running in my house. Not all running surround, but it's just I'm in the industry, so I have it. But the funny story though is in the living room, all the speakers in walls. They're say the brand for my old company I worked for. Speakers that we designed, and I had a lot of input on. But everything's in the wall, nice and clean.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I would say I am anti in-wall speaker.
Sure.
I in my experience have never heard an in-wall speaker that I would have been happy with.
Okay.
But I'm very curious because you're in it,
Yeah.
so you've got carte blanche on designing this stuff. So how did you make those sound good?
Well, that's the gray
The art?
area in this
Yeah.
is sometimes you have to work with the space. And I was talking to James about this, like in his living room, the way I would have it set up wouldn't be the way he has it set up, but the way he has it set up is right. It's right for him, right for his space. So you got to take the space into consideration, the people that are going to be enjoying that space. So if you have a woman of the house, she's got to be happy with it too.
Right.
So all those factors go into it, and that's what ultimately makes it sound good. But at the end of the day, most speakers that you can get in wall can perform, if it's a good quality speaker, can perform just as well as any other system out there. Like what you have, you can get the same type of drivers in the wall with the proper airspace and all that you need. Placement wise, you can get in the right place as good as you can. Still not going to be able to tow them in so much. There's going to be some things that you can't do. But you can fill the room with subwoofers. You can change the placement of the subwoofer, but it disappears into the room. So it's not an eyesore for a lot of people come in. Like people come into my family room, they see the big TV and that's all they see, even though there's giant speakers in the wall right next to them.
Yeah. And I guess that would be the end all, live, if you want it, like a living room that you have to actually live in and not in a dedicated theater space.
Yeah.
I agree that an in-wall system would be a fantastic thing.
Yeah.
I think most of the time when I see it executed, whether it's on ABS or on Facebook or something, you see these 16-inch speaker baffles that just are like, oh my god, that's awful, right? Like
yes and no. Like you think about that speaker is going in. Say if you have a 2.6s and a tweeter Diapolito, in the wall, you're using that whole cavity as an enclosure. The speaker is designed to work in a cavity of sorts.
Right.
They have a recommended airspace, but again, you're dealing with what you got. So you can stuff it full of insulation. You can put a back box in it. Usually that tightens up the bass and you lose a lot of low end, but then you're definitely going to have a subwoofer. So it's all in the design, and you can have. I've done hundreds of systems that were all. I mean, I've done probably thousands of systems in wall, but 100 of them have been like super impressive, knock your socks off. I didn't expect that type situations.
So at 10%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
that's awesome. But that's
the
awesome.
Space is the big part of it. And then also the selection. So
limitations, you're always dealing with limitations, right? There's always a bookend, right? That you're working within, right? It's never just a blank slate.
Two of the best systems I've ever heard. One of them I installed and one of them was at my trade show. All in-wall speakers, all in-wall subwoofers.
Nice.
The one that I did was for a football player, and actually it wasn't his house. It was his house after the original guy built it that I worked for. But it was a Trinov pre-pro setup, so a Trinov processor, Trinov amplifier, JL Audio Fathom subwoofers front and rear, B&W in-wall towers. I mean, we're talking, this is $500,000 system. And and it's one of the best sounding surround systems I've ever listened to.
Shit.
It better be.
And then
fucking hell.
The other one was the
That's
same.
as much as a house.
Oh yeah. Well, the other system that sounded just as good was Trinov preamp, but it was a $1 million system. All Macintosh amplifiers, all Sonus Faber speakers.
So that begs the question, for normal people, where do you see that kind of diminishing return? Where do your personal ears hear it? Can you hear it all the way up to $100,000 system, a $500,000 system?
With my degradation in hearing, I can still hear I use my wife as a gauge. Like when I'm sampling these speakers, bringing them in, or like right beside me, I have a $7,800 Parasound amplifier and a $3,500 preamp. Then I have what was it, $12,000 or $15,000 worth of cables those speakers right there are $3,000 a piece, $3,200 a piece. Can I hear the difference? Absolutely. Do I feel like that I'm getting my money's worth? No. I switched out the cables I made custom cables for my system downstairs. And I switched them out for a set of $10,000 cables. And
I roll my own cables. They cost me a couple bucks. Yes.
Well, and that's funny you say that, James, because I make my own cables. Like I buy what I think is good cable, right? And I just have a hard time, and maybe it's because I don't have the money. Let's be honest. But I have a hard time. I think that I can go buy lampshade cable, or regular electrical cable, and compare them to my more expensive cables, because I did buy, again, what I feel is good cabling, put my own ends on it, ran them, under the house, through the walls, etc. I'm sure that there is some difference, just in own
at a
resistance.
certain level, though, right? I would think at a certain level, look, the amount of people that
everything in line at the same point, like you have to have good amplification, good power coming into the amplifier for that to be clean. Interconnects all the way down the chain.
I will say, Kris, this is kind of a funny story. When I got my new receiver and the subs and this subwoofer amp, my wife and I were watching our first movie together with all the new equipment, and I was super happy, cranking it up. It was a James Bond movie, and I was very proud.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we smelled something, and I literally almost burned the house down. This house was built in '86, and we were melting the wire. Fortunately, we're on a crawl space, and it was under the house and not in insulation. But it definitely melted the wire about 12 foot from the outlet. So totally burned the shit out of this. And so I had to have a dedicated 20 amp wire run by the electrician, which has been fantastic. Thank you, George. But it was a bizarre feeling.
I'm amazed at how many people I come across in my Facebook travels that are using lamp wire to run their speakers.
It's what you got.
People swear by it.
I've got some too. I use it. The wire I run in people's houses every day. Honestly, it's not much different than lamp cord. It's 16 gauge, oxygen free
that's
copper,
what I run. 16,
high strand,
absolutely.
good stuff. And that's actually what I use to make my custom cables, because it's decent copper.
Nice.
And I'll tell you, when is 92%? Is that good enough? If you get 92% or whatever, I'm just using that as a number. But if you get 90%, 95%, I don't know. If you get that out of lamp cord versus 10,000, 20,000, or God knows how high these cables can go. If you get that out of lamp cord, is that good enough? For me, a value guy, that's awesome.
That's where it has to be.
I'll take it.
You do one step at a time. So especially if you have a budget, if you got all the money in the world, do whatever you want. But if you don't, and you've got other bills to pay or other toys to buy, you got to compromise somewhere. So do it in increments. Okay, I need more power, so I'm gonna really juice up with a decent amplifier, but I'm not gonna go for the nines. I'm gonna just go.
Yeah, but that's your slippery slope as well.
Oh, sure,
right. That's where it all begins.
Why do I have all of this?
The second you're like, this lamp cable's not going to work for me, I need to spend $2,000 on cable. Then all of a sudden everything else sounds like shit, and you're upgrading. It's that.
Thankfully, it doesn't do it that much on cable.
That's right. That's right. It's mainly speakers. Buy good speakers.
Good speakers. Good speakers. Good amplification.
And here's the thing: is I thought I had a few sets of speakers until Kris sent me his list of speakers, and there must have been 18 pairs of speakers on there. It's like, hey, anything you want to listen to, just let me know. And I was just like,
it's not even a full list either. I got to add more to it.
Where do I start? So I'm going to share this real quick. I'm going to share just kind of my setup, and typically everyone who would watch has seen this before as my background. But really, what I've got going on is Kris's heresies right now that I've been borrowing, listening to those. And then I recently
what
picked
are
up these
those?
Kella.
What's the speakers in those? What's the actual woofers in
It's got
those?
a 12-inch woofer. It's basically the same thing as the Cornwall, the La Scala, just different woofer and different cabinet size. So these are the Heresy that was designed to be a center channel for the Klipsch horn, the La Scala, and the bells.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
Exactly, and that's why it was named the Heresy, because when Paul Klipsch came to, I forgot whoever it was, and said, "Hey, I want to build this speaker," and they said that's heresy that you would even consider making a speaker like that as a center channel for those big monsters.
But he's benefiting from those actually being on the floor then, actually, right?
Those speakers are designed. So Klipsch is designed to be corner loaded on most of their heritage speakers.
Yeah.
But you can put them in different places. You can it changes everywhere you put them. So they're designed to be coupled to the floor on those particular speakers. They're known for not having a lot of bass. They only play down to like 56 hertz, I think, from the factory.
Interesting.
And they only play up to 17,000.
They sound great on the floor, right? So I have those
Well, and
KLH.
James, you can't hear up to 17,000 anyway. You're probably about 12 by now.
No,
maybe 10.
Mine's spot on.
The one thing people don't realize, a lot of people don't know this, is I learned this when I was a teenager. I was like, why would I buy a power amplifier, a CD player, and speakers that can play from 5 hertz to 105 hertz when I can't hear that? Well, it's because
harmonics,
the frequencies that you're resonating in the room of other objects in the room, you're resonating from those frequencies you can't hear, are resonating in frequencies that you can hear. Yeah, so you do get a difference.
I've played that game with my wife before, just with the tone generator, and she is a little bit younger than I, but also has better hearing than I do.
Oh yeah, women and children do.
She can hear some stuff, but I'll hear the resonance, like I'll hear something, but she'll hear. Yes, or you'll hear it. Especially those high-pitched things, like you just like can turn your head just enough and you're like, it's over there somewhere. Like I hear something. But she's better at that than I am.
Yeah, that's why I have
these
my
heresies were these heresies were a bit eye-opening as far as the detail that they have, as far as the mids. So it's really interesting. And these KLHs that I have in the back, these Model 17s, I love them. I think at low volumes, they sound fantastic with some punchy bass. But, the rest of this equipment is between 30 and 50 years old, which is insane. But I went with the Marantz on everything. So down at the bottom there's a whole other setup of Marantz 2238B with the tape deck, the 5010. And then I have a 1060, which is only 30 watts. And these heresies can crank on 30 watts.
Yeah, and that's part of audio that most people don't understand, is how loud 1 watt actually is, right?
The efficiency
or how loud 2 watts actually is. My 1299s are named as such because they're 12-inch woofers with 99 efficiency. So
which is really high for that size driver.
Super high, right?
You only need 15 watts would kill.
Oh yeah.
Now you think that until you watch a movie and you've got to fill this huge room that I have, this huge vacancy.
Yeah.
And I'm using all 120 watts that the receiver can put out.
Crazy.
Especially with headroom for explosions and all that sort of stuff. But regardless, if you're in a small room like my office here, 1 watt is all you freaking need. And a tube amp in here will jam. You get 3 watts out of what is it, like a T88 or whatever that tube is, like T68. That'd be freaking phenomenal.
So the Deckler triode is?
Yes.
Okay, so on their website they have a schematic. You can build it. I've got the whole parts list and everything built out with the most current parts that are available. Because I'm going to build 2 mono blocks for my system downstairs. But
that's what I want to do.
This receiver is integrated. It's got this little switch right here for normal operation, or class A. So it goes from an 85 watt stereo amplifier to a 15 watt class A. that amplifier on those heresies is magic. It's
I'll take the Class A,
killer.
please.
it's
That's
hard
killer.
to explain the
Yeah.
sound difference, but it's not louder, it's not quieter, it's different. It's not even
More.
full.
Different.
It's
Yeah.
just
Different. Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
So
it's neat.
awesome. In these killer stereos we all have, what have you been listening to lately?
I can go first.
Go ahead.
Because I'm a dork.
It's not like we have a guest or
I
anything,
think we're
Casey.
all dorks.
I know. Fuck that guy. This is an album that I found a couple years ago. It's from 2019, and I'm not a country music fan at all. But this guy was born and raised in the county that I'm from, back in Kentucky, and so when he came out with this album, it's a rock and roll album. So I was super excited about it because I was like, oh, this is music I could actually like, and I do love it. But Sturgill Simpson's album,
Oh, nice.
Sound and
Nice.
Fury, this album rocks all the way through. It sounds fantastic. It's different than his other stuff. And he branched out from his country stuff to do this rock album. And a lot of people, his OG fans, don't like it. And I freaking
Really?
love it because it's rock.
Sure.
It's real rock, American rock,
Awesome.
rather than his country stuff.
So
And I fucking love it.
that's a little bit different than what's going on lately, right? So this is a guy who's country going rock as opposed to rock and R&B going to country like Post Malone or Beyonce,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So cool.
And
Anything
he's
else?
super, super talented. No, I just figured one thing. But I play this
Cool.
on my record player is a U-turn with the red Otophone.
Otophone. Yeah.
Yep, as we've talked about, James,
Yep.
which I think sounds fantastic.
Mhm.
I do want to experiment and try some different stuff. I have the emotive preamp for that, which is super
Emotive or
emotiva. Thank you.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's super small. It's all electronic. But I'd like to pair the record player with a tube amp or a tube preamp. Like I said, I want to just build this myself, and it's just finding the time to do it.
That's killer.
But the emotive stuff I think is really good. And I contemplated doing their big amp and their preamp, receiver and stuff. Didn't
Good
go down
value,
that route.
killer value.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Very
So
good value.
Chinese
I would say
company,
it was a
right?
good value 10 years ago. I don't think it's as good a value now. They've gotten
They're a little
fairly
pricey.
expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyhow, I do think the vinyl preamp is good, and the U-turn
Nice.
record player I think is good, and this album is fantastic.
Okay.
Cool. What do you listen to, Kris?
I'll go next. So I've been on a reggae kick lately.
Yes.
I listen to
Let's
everything.
go.
So when I tell people I listen to everything, it's legit, everything. And but lately I've been on a reggae kick. A lot of the smaller, newer stuff. Some of it's a lot of rap influence, rock influence, punk influence on some of these guys. It came from
So you're
punk
going
bands.
white boy reggae.
A little bit of everything, actually. It's
Yeah.
a little bit of everything, but a lot more white boy. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like Southern
West Coast
California
stuff.
and
Yep,
East
yep.
Coast. So a lot of the guys I'm listening to are East Coast, Maryland, Boston. So Elevators, Stick
Okay,
Figure,
yes.
Dirty Heads.
I love Stick Figure,
Fortunate
Dirty Heads.
Youth.
Yes.
I just saw Elevators, Fortunate Youth, Dirty Heads, Common Kings, Iration.
Yes. All right. These are my
Pacific
peoples.
Dub. So
Yes.
yeah, these are concerts I've been going to lately, and one of the restaurants that I work for has what they call the Music Yard here in Charlotte, and I get to go to the shows all I want. So Friday is supposed to be Arise Roots, but I think it's going to get rained out because it's actually an outdoor venue.
Yeah.
But, it's that's
My wife and I need to
thing
come
right
down
now.
and do that because we love Dirty Heads. We've been to several of their concerts. Iration.
They're good.
I really would love to see Stick Figure.
Oh, yeah.
These are my guys.
They just canceled Charlotte. There's one in it's tonight, I think. Rona.
or would be?
Where?
Or is it going? Yeah.
No, it's Virginia Beach. I think it's tonight.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. It's Wednesday.
Nice.
I can't do that.
It's
I got to
Prince Spaghetti
work
Day.
very early in
Wednesday.
the morning.
yeah, but so I listen to that right now. Mix up with my playlist. Like I'm an Apple Music guy. I'm all in on the Apple infrastructure and ecosystem. So I go with all the lossless stuff. My phone's set up for everything I download and listen to is full res, high res, lossless, whatever it is. And
I rip every one of my CDs as an ALAC.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
I will say, to their credit, the NAD receiver I have, the software is a little flaky. I'm not super happy with it. The direct is awesome, but the actual like interface is a little clunky on the receiver itself. The way it interfaces with the TV leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
But I will say when it interacts with Spotify, which is what I use,
Okay.
the quality is superb.
Yeah.
They get
Nice.
like full range stuff, and it is good. It's not, I don't know that it's lossless, but they do send it over better than it comes to your phone.
Yeah, it's a lossy of sorts. You do get some compression there, but it's still good. It's really
it's
funny.
good enough for my ears.
You using the interface. Like I've been doing this for years, installing this stuff. 99% of the receivers that I've installed over the last 15 plus years, the only thing I use the interface on it for is setting it up. And then that's the last it ever sees a day of light. Everything's in, like I've got a rack in my bedroom, my spare bedroom up here in the closet. It's a 42U rack and it's full. And that I just go up there to tinker when I need to or fix something. But it's interesting. Like, so using the interface on the stereo, how often do you interface with that? So I'm trying to develop myself a little bit.
I'm just talking about like switching inputs.
Okay.
Going from one input to another. Say I go from the TV, whatever it's given back, like Netflix or whatever, to say the Xbox, which I use for the 4K stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
It honestly, I've been changing cables, trying to track down the problem. Maybe it's a cabling issue, but there can be like where it'll drop out. Where say I'm movies typically don't do it, but if I'm playing like a video game, I'll have drop frames where the game will go black. I'll lose the ability to see. Audio still comes through, movement still comes through, but the video will drop.
Okay, we could chat offline. I can help you fix it.
Yeah,
and then it comes back and you're dead.
Exactly right. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
When I get 20 minutes and that's all I have and I fucking die, like I don't like this.
Yeah.
Like this is a problem.
All right.
But, Kris, show us the album that you got a specific album that you have been hitting on?
With the Dirty Heads, I've been playing it like I have ADHD pretty good. So that's one of our traits, I guess, is we listen to the same songs over and over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
So my dash cam, when I pull the video, it's usually the same song for the whole week.
That's awesome.
I've been listening to the Dirty Heads, Moonlight Control, and their second album a lot. The Dirty Heads album, which no, it's not Dirty Heads album. It's find it now.
So does Apple give you your plays, or is that easily accessible? Or
I use it like Pandora. Yeah. So you play play song, and it'll start selecting other artists just like them. And sometimes it's not as good as Pandora when it comes to that, but it's pretty good. Ends up playing a lot of the same songs, which I'm okay with. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'm a big fan of really anything. Island Glow, the 2016 Dirty Heads, The Sound of Change, Cabin by the Sea, Midnight Control, all those I could play just straight through.
Yep.
And I'm gonna be happy.
Hipster is my current, like that, and Day by Day are my repeats right now.
Yes. All right. We are the same. Yeah. I can listen to that stuff just over and over again. I fucking love it. And it puts me in a really good, happy, chill mood.
And that's what that music's all about. Like, when I first started listening to Stick Figure, I looked at his his bio on the Apple TV when I was playing it, and it's all good vibes, a lot of bass,
Yep.
positive vibes and spatial sound. So
Yes.
if you like to drink a little bit or partake in other stuff, it's very good music for that enjoyment too.
Agree 100%.
Yeah.
A late night when I'm out on the back porch and I've got like a fire going, that stuff is good. It's really, really good, and it puts you in a really good. Oh, James just died.
Oh, there he's back.
No, I'm
really
here.
good.
I'm here.
Really good.
I'm here.
Really good
I'm here.
headspace.
Oh yeah, that's the best thing about it.
All right, James, your
Cool.
turn. We've been talking.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna bust my balls here, Casey. I know that, but I don't listen to the same shit that you do. Not that it's shit, but for the most part, I listen to vinyl all the way through, so I'm a full album guy. What I've been playing, yes, that's part of the joys of vinyl, right? Is to be very conscious of what you're going to listen to, and you're not going to get just hit skip, right?
Agreed.
So
agreed.
What I have here is Henry Franklin. I don't know if you can see that.
I don't know what that is.
Henry Franklin, jazz bassist. So he's mostly known for his black jazz label stuff. So I've been listening to that a lot. Really cool West Coast jazz. So not that it would be kind of airy and all that.
More or less heroin.
I don't know about the heroin part, but how about funky as hell, right?
So like ska influence or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
that's good stuff then. All right.
We're talking 70s. You got that kind of soul jazz to it. Bass player he's got a really nice tone. Really interesting is that I don't know if you ever seen in the record stores the Jazz is Dead label, but what they do is a couple of musicians get together and they will pair up with a jazz player and either re-record some of an interpretation of their classic stuff, or they'll do new music. So really cool stuff.
Love it.
And I've been listening to the Jazz is Dead, Henry Franklin stuff as well. But the other thing that was really intriguing, I recently found this, is Paul Horn, right? Called Inside. What's so cool about this is it's 100%, what do you want to call it? Just off the cuff, really.
Like improv?
Improvisation, the whole thing.
Interesting.
But what's cool is it was recorded live, one take in the Taj Mahal. So the Taj Mahal has an echo of 23 seconds.
Yeah.
So this was a recording where literally he had to get permission from the guard after hours, and he went in and recorded these tunes. And the guard also participated with his chants, Hindu chants, and it just echoes and it's very airy, and it's just wild. I'm not going to say there's a beat to it or anything like that. It is definitely chill music. Turn the lights down low, but it is wild.
So I'm sure you've listened to Miles Davis, Bitches Brew.
Absolutely.
Is it in that same vein?
I would say more in a silent way. Miles Davis in a silent way, which would be a very minimalistic, right?
Interesting.
Tones. He's playing off the echo. Yeah, it could be a little new age. It could be a little Eno
I'm
kind of feel to it.
It's kind of like Inya.
Okay.
Yeah, but what's so
interesting,
cool?
Because I thought I had a really, and I wouldn't listen to it today. I have a really hard time with Bitches Brew, right? Like it's too chaotic, too random.
Listen to In a Silent Way.
Okay. All right.
Pull up In a Silent Way, or Jack Johnson, you could pull that up. That would be closer to a rock album. you may like that. I would suggest that. But this is not that. This is definitely a background kind of chill,
instrumental.
have a glass of wine, hang out, or whatever else you would like to do.
And it does have reverb. I listened to a little clip there.
It's just it's fascinating. It's worth listening. Even if you don't enjoy it, it's worth listening to because it's all improv. He just went in there and whatever he was feeling is what he played. And he asked the guard, the security guard, to do these chants. And he does these chants and they just echo and they fill up your whole room. So check it out. I know it's a little weird, but would you expect anything else from me?
So,
it's interesting. Yeah. It's good.
Before we get to the last topic, because I know we're running kind of long.
We are running long.
I talk a lot.
Really fun. No, it's really fun that we're just having a random conversation. It's going like this. I wanted to show at least my surround speakers, which I think are a little unique. Again, they're DIY sound group speakers. They're coaxial. 8-inch woofers with they're ported. Let me pull them up. This one I've actually got done, and I covered them in
I love those.
some veneer.
Those are the Celestians or the
whatever the 8-inch with the horn in the back.
Yeah, zoom in one, Casey.
Yeah, so that's a horn-loaded speaker, James, just like a Klipsch in a way, but it uses the woofer as the horn.
Yeah,
lens.
Nice. Right.
And they really sound good, even with some power. I've put them up on the main stage and put them as left and rights and let them sing. And you know what? They sound really nice.
Wait, so those are unfinished, Casey?
Group, no, that one in particular, I'd finished that one.
They look cool as hell.
With some oak veneer, with just some I think it was honey stain. And then clear coated, and I polished it with the
steel
car
wool
polisher.
Okay.
No, with the car polisher, like Jez car
buffer,
actually.
Got it.
And so they're shiny, which it's hard to kind of figure out like how you want to finish a set of speakers, which is why my mains are not finished because I fucking don't want to ruin it. And that's my problem is that I have a fantastic speaker, but I don't want to fuck it up by the look.
Get the vinyl wood grain stuff and just put a sticker on. You can always peel that off.
It legit is a problem. Like it's a problem.
Well,
go ahead, James.
There you go.
Sorry.
Well, we're going into 1 hour 20 minutes here. So we've been drinking bourbon for an hour and 20 minutes. So what are you drinking there?
So a buddy of mine just went down to North Carolina for a beach vacation, and because North Carolina, surprisingly, as fucking terrible as it is still better than Virginia, with its bourbon. And he got me a bottle of the Heaven Hill Grain to Glass.
Cool.
Nice.
This is the standard bourbon. I'm pretty sure that they came out with 3 expressions, a wheated and a rye, on top of this standard bourbon. This one is Heaven Hill. Growing up in Kentucky, this is one of those distilleries that you just know by heart. But everything in this lineup, the Grain to Glass, is a different mash bill than their standard mash bills that you buy. Their Larcenies, their Elijah Craig's, etc. So they've got it printed on here. It's rye 35%, corn 52%, and malted barley 13%, which is really high.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 53 and a half proof, so 107, or I should say 53.5. Dude, it's not. This is a 107 proof. It's fantastic. Fucking hell. Like it's $100 for the bottle. Which everything halfway decent seems to be $100 anymore.
Is there some value in that, or what? Do you get your value out of it for $100?
100%. Now, the fantastic part of this for me, and Kris, seeing your collection behind there, I think that you'll agree with me, is that Max Shapiro, he decided to do this 9-10 years ago, right? It's a 7 or 8 year age, but he had to decide to do this a long ass time ago.
Yep.
This decision was not made last week. This was not like a fly by night. Oh, we need to drum up some sales, and we need to get the hippies who want the field to table stuff. This was some forethought, and I really, really appreciate it. The bourbon itself is fantastic. The nose is really creamy. The actual taste is very classic bourbon stuff. Right in my wheelhouse of the caramel and all the goods. The finish is fantastic. It's not like overpowering. It's a really good bottle, and I would really encourage anyone that likes bourbon, like anyone across the spectrum, to try this bottle if you find it. But especially if you like Heaven Hill stuff and you want something a little different that most people probably will look at and be like, that's $105. Oh, the grain to glass, like, why do I want that shit? This is probably not going to show up on the typical collector's quote unquote shelf. But this, I think this will end up being one of those secret good bottles that is sneaky good. It's really a nice bottle.
You said it's a 30% rye.
35.
Oh wow, so very high rye. So it's
really high rye.
Very
yeah.
flavorful.
It's got some spice nose.
Yep.
Like you can smell like the little spice on your nose, but it really doesn't really come through. I like a little spice. I'm a wild turkey guy.
Yep.
Like I like that stuff, but it's a really good bottle. It's surprising. I'm just happy that something kind of corny like a grain to glass ends up being fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
Because that could have been a huge flop. But that's a good bottle.
Nice.
I know that
Chris, what you got?
The groups around here have been raving about them and then buying them off the shelves. So
that's good.
We won't ever see it in Charlotte.
Some of those groups I get tired of and I have to bounce out of because they all are sucking on Blanton's and E.H. Taylor.
Same old.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you can't get them to you can't get them to express anything different. This is a bottle that was on the shelf in whatever Carolina Beach or someplace that my buddy went. That's a really good bottle. That's a really good bottle.
Right. So what I'm drinking tonight, my warm up was Woodford Double Oak.
Got multiples.
Oh, yeah. I've had 3. Woodford Double Oak was my old fashioned. That's a good one. It's like a candy bar in a bottle.
Hate it.
Absolutely.
You do?
Yeah, James is not a fan of Woodford Double Oak.
I'm not a fan of Woodford.
Really?
Even though I love the sister companies, I'm a huge fan of like the Cooper's Craft and all the Old Forester stuff, man. I
love.
And then Jack Daniels.
Old Forester kills.
My Jack Daniels collection is a pretty decent one. I like the single barrel stuff.
That's a Kevin.
Yeah, well, miss you, Kevin. Miss you, Kevin.
And then so my next up was I'm a big Four Roses fan. Again, higher rye mash bill. But that's a single barrel proof store pick.
Which yeast do you like?
I don't know. I like them all. Because my favorite is actually the small batch select. So 6 of the recipes.
Okay.
So I really enjoy their whiskey. So that was my number 2, and then I didn't have another one in between, did I? No. And then this one I got because I wanted another Blanton's. I'm not going to pay crazy prices for Blanton's, but
I can't see it because the screen's fucking up. But it's a Yellowstone
store pick.
Yeah.
And I got this in Illinois because this liquor store, they do it the right way, but I still don't care for how they do it. They do package deals. So if you want one bottle, they're going to sell you a whole bunch. So if you want a Pappy, they're on the shelf. You can get them all day long on the shelf.
But you got to buy 16 other things.
27 bottles, and it's about $1,900. So I wanted this. I got this Blanton's. I just wanted another one to back up that one because that's the only one I've ever found on the shelf. So $120. I got a store pick Yellowstone, which this is better than the Blanton's by far.
Mm-hmm.
This was
Really?
this
Nice.
was the winner.
Blanton's is not fucking good.
It's overrated. There's no doubt.
It's a single barrel,
But,
so
hey,
it's hit and miss. You're gonna have a good one. You're gonna have
But
a bad one.
you gotta collect the top, right?
Yeah, if you're into
You
that.
gotta get those letters.
Now you're just gonna. That's a goal now. 10 years ago, it's like, whatever. So
Whatever.
I'm a big fan of the Buffalo Trace juice, but I'm not. Like the E.H. Taylors are special to me for a personal reason, so that's why I have those. And I haven't opened the Weller because I want to do a poor man's Pappy. So I'm waiting to find
Weller's killer.
That 12-year on the shelf. That's
awesome.
Ridiculously priced.
I have 2 bottles of Blanton's, and I would give each of them away.
Yeah,
that
one's really good. The one I have open, it's the best Blanton's I've had. Like I get them at restaurants and friends' houses. That's the best one I've had. And it's super smooth. All the Buffalo Trace caramely stuff. But honestly, if anybody likes Blanton's or likes that profile, you got to do. I don't know if you know this, that since Buffalo Trace makes so many different flavors of juice, they have 4 mass bills.
That's Legion. I see the Legion.
Oh, Legion's really good. Ancient Aged or Ancient Aged is mash bill 2. Yeah. And it's young, but it's got the same aromas. It's got some of the same profile, flavors and smells. But that's a $10 bottle.
Yeah, you can't get that here in Virginia. That's
that all over the place.
Unobtainium down here.
Oh, really?
You can't get it.
Interesting.
Yeah, we've got them all over the place here.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
that's
how about we're going to ship you a list and you ship us a list and we'll just do an exchange.
Yeah, I do have to say he won't watch till this far in, but thank you, Steve, for picking up the bottle. But he and I are bourbon buddies here, and he often goes down to the Outer Banks and will pick up this stuff for me.
Nice.
But it's wild what 2-hour drive south can net you out of Virginia going into North Carolina.
Well, you live in a police state, bro.
Is Virginia?
You're
in
an
more
ABC
ways than one.
well. You're an ABC state as well.
So does Virginia
North Carolina?
Prices?
At least we're MSRP.
Okay, by law, North Carolina is MSRP.
Yeah. So back to North Carolina, Casey, with the Belfour. Have you had this?
I have not.
It's good.
It's a fancy bottle.
It looks like. Did I just see that it was secondarily aged though?
It is 18 months. 18 months minimum.
Probably not gonna like it.
I know. So I think you may. It's got a nice pecan taste to it, right? So it's aged. Toasted pecan staves are inserted in the barrels, right?
Okay.
And then,
so it is staves and not a true barrel.
It's got the barrel, but then they put the staves.
I like that.
Yeah. We talked about that in the past, but it's distilled in Statesville, North Carolina.
Okay.
So, and Belfour is Ed Belfour, the NHL Hall of Famer goalie.
Which is another reason I typically wouldn't like it. I don't
stay away from that. I totally agree, but it doesn't come across to me as a Stars.
It's not a Travelers.
Travelers
blackened.
Here's the thing: is it? It doesn't have. I don't think there's a name recognition with Belfour.
Okay. Right.
Right.
If you say.
So Casey, you don't like double-barreled stuff?
No, not typically.
Really?
No,
I'm
just
over
it. Yeah, no.
So
I think it was.
So, do you like rye?
Good.
I do like rye.
Have you ever had Sagamore Spirits?
Oh, the Sagamore double oaked
is magical
in an old fashioned, especially.
Oh yeah,
that
really?
Stuff sings. But
fantastic.
that Sagamore stuff, they do that on site. That's all their juice.
Mm-hmm.
That is a special product.
Killer.
And I do like the Sagamore double oak stuff.
I got one back there.
It is really good. Sagamore's doing good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Sagamore's doing good stuff.
Nice.
We got a Lucky 7 double oak one that's pretty damn good too.
Yeah, I haven't had that one.
Yeah.
You and your double oaks. I'm out. On that note, we've been going here for over an hour and a half, so let's give it a wrap. What do you say?
Sounds good.
Wrap it
So,
up.
Kris, hey, thanks for joining us. We had
Anytime.
plenty to talk about, and I think we could have gone a whole other hour easily.
At least give a good
Easily.
plug for your business.
Oh, good
Yeah.
plug for my business. I've got a lot of business going on, so if somebody around does want some, AV gear and stuff like that installed, hit me up. But Palmetto Home Theater in the Charlotte area.
Awesome. So as far as Whiskey Watches and Wheels go, you know where to find us on whiskeywatchesandwheels.com, as well as Instagram. Please leave us some notes. I know this is a little bit different episode that we've had in the past. It's just that, we've got a small crew tonight, and we brought on Kris because he's got some expertise. And Casey and I are kind of audio whores for this stuff. So we enjoyed it.
Can I say one thing before we leave?
No.
I'm going to. We've got a buddy that is out tonight. It doesn't matter who, but is spending some time with a friend who's dealing with some mental health issues. And as a dude, if you know somebody that is struggling with mental health, reach out to them. Most dudes aren't going to say anything, but we guys
good
know,
point.
and we can kind of tell when somebody's struggling with something. So if you've got a buddy that is being quiet or being too loud or doing something different, reach out to them and let them know you care for them, and don't let something bad sit on your conscience.
Yep.
So I appreciate those guys who can reach out and be that person for somebody else.
Yeah. It's called a good friend. And we know that we've got some good ones. So on that note, thank you, Casey. Thank you, Kris. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Peace.
Anytime.